Hearing the loud cries of a child, I felt a wave of confusion wash over me.
Jessica, are you deaf? Hurry up and take your brother outside to play.
My lips trembled as I pinched myself hard. The pain made me shiver. Emily impatiently pushed me, her mouth spewing familiar curses.
Useless girl, always pretending to be asleep when there's work to do.
I suddenly snapped back to reality and turned to see my small reflection in the glass window. I had been reborn. A glance at the calendar on the wall made me instantly realize what day it was. Holding Jack, I stepped outside, trying to gather my thoughts.
Loan sharks, debt collectors, a tragic fall. Do I hate them? Of course, I do. In those few seconds of falling from the building, I exhausted all my life's malice, cursing this family.
In just a few days, I was supposed to get married and escape this suffocating quagmire. Instead, I met a tragic end in an abandoned factory. I took a deep breath, the overwhelming resentment growing like black thorns in my heart, my eyes turning wild.
I remembered this day vividly. It was the day we encountered human traffickers. I went to buy ice cream for Jack, and he was lured away with a candy. I was terrified but smart enough to seek help from nearby adults. In the end, Jack was saved but was so frightened that he cried nonstop when we got home.
Jack was 2.5 years old but spoiled by Emily. He would throw tantrums and cry loudly if things didn't go his way, speaking in broken words.
Hit me hurt.
Emily's eyes widened in anger, and she grabbed a feather duster, beating me mercilessly.
You little beast, he's your brother, and you hit him. Why don't you just disappear?
I curled up desperately, crying out.
I didn't! It was bad people! Bad people tried to take him!
You little liar, you're the biggest troublemaker in this family. How did I give birth to such a heartless creature?
My throat was hoarse from crying as I crawled to the edge of the bed.
Jack, tell Mom, I didn't hit you.
But Jack seemed amused by the scene, laughing out loud. His innocent laughter overlapped with the dark memories. My whole body tensed, and sudden fear almost made me throw him away. I trembled all over, not knowing if it was from hatred or excitement.
Just around the corner was the ice cream stand. 2 men in bowler hats were squatting not far away. I stood once again at this crossroads of fate.
Ice creamy.
I lowered my head. Jack, do you want ice cream?
Jack nodded. I felt my blood boiling, turning my brain to mush. I walked towards the ice cream stand, leaving Jack behind. Though I couldn't see him, I could clearly feel his small figure shrinking, blurring, and fading into the mist. I took the ice cream George handed me, shivering from the cold touch.
If Jack went missing, I wouldn't have to live like a dog in this family. I wouldn't have to support these parasitic relatives. I wouldn't have to be chased by debt collectors to the point of desperation. I was supposed to have a bright future.
I stared at the ice cream, my grip tightening, my eyes red with rage.
Hey, girl, you haven't paid yet?
The scorching July sun beat down on me, but I felt like I was in an ice cave. I threw the ice cream away and ran back like a madwoman.
Jack was missing. Jessica's mind went blank, like a heavy snowfall had just covered everything. She stumbled and found Henry, the bicycle repairman.
Bad people took my brother.
With memories from her past life, she led people to block the alley. Henry and the onlookers restrained the kidnappers, and Jessica took Jack back. As soon as she removed the cloth from his mouth, he burst into a deafening wail. Holding him, she also burst into tears. She needed to change her miserable life, but not at the cost of her humanity. This time, she didn't run home immediately. She wiped her tears and went to the police station with Henry and the others. During the statement, she was calm, comforting her crying brother. By the time they finished, Jack had cried himself to sleep. Jessica asked Henry to take them home.
Oh, you brave little girl, you're destined for great things. If it weren't for you today, your brother would have suffered.
These heartless traffickers are worse than animals.
Jessica smiled awkwardly and remained silent, knowing she had almost become an accomplice. As they got home, Emily's voice echoed before she even saw them.
Jessica, why are you so late? Are you slacking off? Get over here and wash the clothes.
She saw Jack asleep in Jessica's arms and rushed over, worried and anxious.
What's wrong with Tom?
Mom, you're disturbing Jack.
Emily fell silent immediately, glaring at Jessica fiercely. Jessica ignored her and took Jack inside. She knew how to handle her mother by now. Henry would take care of the rest, but she needed to think carefully about what to do next. At dinner, Emily scolded Jessica for taking Jack there. Jessica ignored her and focused on eating. Jack sat in Emily's lap, unusually well behaved. After dinner, Jessica cleaned up the mess. Jack, who never moved without being carried, came over and looked up at her.
Sis.
Emily walked by, delighted.
Tom can call people now?
Jack had never called anyone mom or dad since he learned to speak. He rarely spoke because he knew crying would get him what he wanted. Emily's delight quickly faded, and she spat at Jessica.
Jessica, you're just teaching my precious boy bad things. Stay away from him, got it?
Jessica carried the dishes to the kitchen, smirking. Okay. That night, Jack started fussing again.
Sis what?
What did you do to him? Why does he want you?
I don't know. Maybe because he was scared today, and I was with him.
Jack wouldn't stop crying without Jessica, so Emily had to give in, despite her reluctance. Jessica's plan was working. She faced Jack.
See, today you didn't listen to your sister and got taken by bad people. If you don't listen to me again, bad people will hurt you. Just like, Mom hits me, they won't stop.
Creatures instinctively fear danger, and young ones are no different. Jack seemed to sense the genuine malice in Jessica's words. From that night, as he cried to sleep with her, Jessica understood that her life would change completely. My life will change completely in another way.
Tom, what did sister tell you?
He, just starting first grade, hung his head and threw the broken water gun back to its owner.
Tom, apologize.
Tom looked at me with defiance, even a hint of resentment. But I stood my ground, using my height and adult authority to pressure him until he finally spoke. I approached his classmate, gritting my teeth, and took out all the pocket money I had saved from selling bottles.
I'm sorry, we'll get you a new one.
I patted the chubby boy's head and said gently,
Sister will buy you some candy. Please forgive Tom and play with him in the future, okay?
The chubby boy hesitated but eventually nodded.
Who cares about playing with them?
This little rascal. With Emily as a strong negative influence, it took me 5 whole years to correct many of Tom's bad habits. When I first started teaching him, I faced many obstacles. I made a deal with Tom that if he made a mistake, he would have to eat bitter melon. Every time I forced it to his mouth, Tom would scream and cry, attracting Emily's attention. But he never dared to say it was my fault. Before he turned 3, I had ingrained in him the absolute obedience to his sister. Like a baby elephant tied with a rope, even when grown, he wouldn't realize he could easily break free. And I wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. For the past 5 years, I remained constantly vigilant, determined not to let Tom turn out like he did in the past life. On the way home, I remained silent. Tom glanced at my expression.
Sister, the backpack is so heavy.
After Emily discovered I could teach Tom to speak, she reluctantly handed him over to me. But she still constantly reminded him that everything belonged to him, and that his sister was just a worthless girl. But she was too late. When it came to brainwashing, an ignorant illiterate like her couldn't compare to me. A child already set on the right path by me couldn't be ruined by her. Seeing me ignore him, Tom panicked and ran in front of me.
Sister, I'm sorry. Please don't be mad. Don't make me eat bitter melon.
If it were Emily, she would have said,
It's all those little brats' fault. My precious boy is always right. I'll buy you a cake, and we won't play with them anymore.
but I looked at him coldly.
What did you do wrong?
I shouldn't have taken Billy's toy just because they wouldn't play with me.
I flicked his forehead and said sternly,
Remember this, be kind to others, and
my voice suddenly rose.
never covet what doesn't belong to you. Do you hear me?
In the past life, Tom's downfall was due to his greed and vanity. After Tom became sensible, I rarely scolded him. He stood at attention, trembling, and repeated,
Never covet what doesn't belong to me. I remember, sister.
Seasons passed, and Tom entered middle school. One night, David came home drunk again. This happened frequently, so Emily was the one in charge at home.
I and some friends plan to open a brick factory.
I was fetching water for washing feet when I overheard David. My hand shook, spilling water on my shoes. That brick factory was a lifelong nightmare. David was swindled, losing everything. From then on, I fell into another abyss.
What money do you need as a woman? Give me $5,000. Don't you earn a lot? What's wrong with helping out the family? No money? You're just selfish, watching your parents starve while you live well. Your brother is dating. Buy him a house. If you don't help your brother pay off his debts, you'll ruin his life.
From 15 to 35, I supported these leeches for 20 years. They clung to me, draining every drop of my blood. For 20 years of darkness, they reveled and enjoyed, grinning as they watched me struggle in the mire. I trembled all over, my face pale, overwhelmed by a long-forgotten panic. Tom passed by.
Sis, what's wrong?
I snapped back to reality, clutching at him like a lifeline.
Tom, Dad will lose money in business. Mom listens to you the most. Stop them.
Tom obeyed me for another reason. I lowered my head, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Tom, do you want some ice cream?
Yeah, sure.
Jack nodded eagerly. I felt my blood boiling, my brain turning to mush. I walked towards the ice cream stand, leaving Jack behind. Though I couldn't see him, I could clearly feel his small figure shrinking, blurring, and fading into the mist. I took the ice cream George handed me, shivering from the cold touch. If Jack were to disappear, I wouldn't have to live like a servant in this family. I wouldn't have to support these parasitic relatives. I wouldn't have to be chased by debt collectors to the point of desperation. I was supposed to have a bright future. I stared at the ice cream, my grip tightening, my eyes red with rage.
Hey, girl, you haven't paid yet?
The scorching July sun beat down on me, but I felt like I was in an ice cave. I threw the ice cream away and ran back like a madwoman. In my previous life, I didn't go to college. It was my biggest regret. I swung a chair and hit her hard on the back of the head.
Emily, don't blame me.
I finally made it. I watched as the confirmation form for my college application was submitted. Then Emily stormed in.
You little brat. How dare you hit your own mother? I'll tear your face off today.
We were both bruised and battered when the police took us home. David was nowhere to be found, so the police called Tom back. By then, Tom had grown into a young man.
Emily, are you okay?
Emily immediately started wailing.
This heartless creature actually laid hands on her own mother. Look at how much I'm bleeding. She wants to harm me.
Every time Emily and David came to ask for money and I couldn't give them any, they would cause a scene. Onlookers would point fingers at me, calling me ungrateful. The more outraged the crowd, the more triumphant Emily and David felt. I couldn't breathe.
Jessica, how could you hit Emily?
He glared at me coldly.
Hitting your own mother, is that something a daughter should do? Do you have any conscience left?
Yes, Tom is right. Your sister is ungrateful. Don't think you can brainwash Tom anymore. Tom still loves his mom the most, right?
Tom didn't even look at me and helped Emily into the bedroom. His indifferent back made me feel like I was in an ice cave. A terrifying thought surfaced. Despite all my efforts and time, am I still unable to change the outcome of my previous life? In the following days, Tom took care of us at home. Actually, he took care of Emily. Tom would act affectionately towards her, then turn around and order me around.
I'm starving. Why haven't you cooked yet? Are you brainless? My shirt is stained. Jessica, I'm out of money. Give me $1,000. Jessica, didn't you promise to buy me a house? How can I get married without a house?
I was like his servant. Under Emily's lifelong indoctrination, in his eyes, I was his servant, his endless ATM. Emily was thrilled to see Tom ordering me around. Half a month later, I was numbly washing dishes. Tom had taken Emily for a walk. Just as I finished washing, I heard noises from Emily's room. I became alert. It couldn't be a thief in broad daylight, could it? I grabbed a broom, but it was Tom who came running out.
Here, take this.
He hurriedly shoved a bag into my hands. The sun was setting and the streets were bathed in a golden hue. Alice lowered her head, feeling a mixture of anxiety and determination.
Tom, do you want ice cream?
Jack nodded, his small figure almost disappearing in the mist. Alice felt her blood boiling, her thoughts a chaotic mess. She walked towards the ice cream stand, leaving Jack behind. She couldn't see him, but she could feel his presence fading.
Here's your ice cream. That'll be $5.
Alice took the ice cream, shivering from its cold touch. Her mind raced with dark thoughts.
If Jack disappeared, I wouldn't have to live like this, supporting these parasitic relatives, being chased by debt collectors.
Hey, girl, you haven't paid yet.
Alice snapped out of her thoughts, threw the ice cream away, and ran back like a madwoman, leaving a bewildered George behind. Alice lowered her head, her voice uncertain.
Tom, do you want some ice cream?
Sure, I'd love some.
Alice felt a surge of emotions, her thoughts turning chaotic. She walked towards the ice cream stand, leaving Tom behind. Although she couldn't see him, she felt his presence shrinking into the mist. Taking the ice cream from George, Alice shivered from the cold touch. If Tom disappeared, she wouldn't have to endure this oppressive family anymore. She wouldn't need to support these parasitic relatives or be hounded by debt collectors. She was meant for a bright future. Staring at the ice cream, her grip tightened, her eyes filled with frustration.
Hey, you haven't paid yet.
The scorching July sun bore down on Alice, but she felt as if she were in an ice cave. She threw the ice cream away and ran back like a madwoman.
I stepped out of the house and looked at Tom.
You look quite handsome.
What can I do? You know how Dad is.
If we don't teach him a lesson, he'll definitely cause big trouble in the future.
Last time I sent you some beef jerky, Mom saw it.
You had just moved, so I didn't think much and filled in your work address.
But I didn't expect, Sis, I was wrong. Please don't make me eat bitter melon, okay?
I chuckled, but my heart felt warm, almost bringing tears to my eyes.
Don't sell your stuff anymore, and you don't need to give me any dividends. I'll cover the money.
I raised my hand to stop him.
I'm your sister. I can't always rely on you to protect me. Besides, I earn more than you do. Even though they are the way they are, they did bring me into this world.
I looked at Tom. It was hard to imagine that the little boy had grown into a tall young man.
Most importantly, I care about you. If you're worried about them getting suspicious, just send your things to my place.
I forced a big smile.
I lied to Mom. I bought that house. The sunniest room is reserved for you.
After that day, our parents never came looking for me again. Tom enrolled in a computer science program and started a business with some classmates in his junior year. I sponsored them with 200,000 yuan. It was supposed to be 500,000, but Tom looked exasperated.
With your investment ratio, it's like you're buying our team.
Young people with ideas and drive quickly made a name for themselves. Tom regularly sent money to our parents but never let me know. In his third year after graduation, he secretly bought a house for our parents, and I found out.
We'll split it 50-50, or don't call me your sister.
Tom was very busy with work and occasionally stayed at my place. Almost every time, I saw our parents calling him, asking when he would come home.
I'm too busy right now. We'll see.
So, what's the point of a new house? Actually, during the summer after my sophomore year, I went home once. I left the 13,000 yuan I had painstakingly saved in the living room. I subtly asked Tom about it. He said he hadn't seen the money and hadn't heard our parents mention it. Emily knew but pretended to be clueless. At that moment, I made up my mind. In this world, I only have one true family member, and that's my brother, Tom. When I was reborn, I was determined to get back at them. But now, I haven't thought about it for a long time. I don't want to force Tom to choose between me and our parents, nor do I want to make things difficult for him. At this moment, I stood once again at that familiar crossroads. The same effort, but a completely different mindset and a completely different life. A group of children ran by, laughing and playing with pinwheels. Their clear laughter echoed in the air. This time, it was colorful.